Well, hello there, Broncos country. And of course, once again, another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler. And with me today, of course, is my good friend, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well, adjusting to the new normal still. Today was beautiful. The next 2 days aren't going to be as nice. So went on a walk, sat outside for a little bit, caught up on some podcasts and some listening material, and feeling pretty good about things on an individual level.
There you go. Yeah, I laid out on my front porch yesterday to soak in the sun.
Yeah,
just felt so good. Felt so good, man. Missed that.
Yep.
And so that was nice. I'm a little nervous. I'm supposed to be preaching outside on Sunday, and there's possibility of snow. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, you never know. It's supposed to be rainy here today. Beautiful today. Going to rain the next few days. Just take advantage of it when you can.
But anyway, glad we get to talk some football. We are 16 days away from the draft.
Oh, and today is National Beer Day also. So
yes, we cannot forget that.
Congrats to everyone. So I'm going to off screen here, but I got my Broncos cup. So you can let the imagination go with whatever I'm opening up right now. But, go ahead, back to it. I just figured
there
out.
You go.
National Beer Day. We got to celebrate the small things, Carl.
It's true. That is it. The simple life is the best life, and finding a good beer is a good simple life. But all right, well, before we talk some football, just want to let everybody know you can find me at Carl Dumler MHH and Nick at Nick Kendell MHH on Twitter. And of course, you can find the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show wherever you listen and to podcasts, or you that are listening live. We really appreciate it. And make sure you go leave us a rating if you can. And also don't forget to head over to milehighhuddle.com. We're going to be pumping out the articles over the next couple of weeks leading up to this draft, and of course right after. So make sure you head on over there. And of course know that this is part of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And also know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media. So we got kind of almost two subjects here today as we I kind of have a part. I wrestled with my kid. Sorry, I saw Buana Beast had said I had my kid all day, so I wrestled with her, and yeah, she kind of got the hair. So that's why you got this. It did look good for like 10 seconds earlier today. But anyway, back to what we're going to be talking about here today. We thought we'd talk about either one, the trade back options for the Broncos. What would that look like? Who would be good value later in the draft? And also just kind of hitting at this. I mean, it's still kind of wide receiver a bust for a lot of people. And so just kind of looking at what are some other options if the Broncos miss on wide receiver, because there really is a real possibility that all three of the top wide receivers could be gone for the Broncos pick.
And all four offensive tackles.
Right. And so at least for me, I'm not one that is wanting to reach for that fourth wide receiver at 15.
I mean, it depends. Obviously, it depends on the individual. If the fourth wide receiver in this class was, say, Julio Jones, actually Julio Jones would be the first wide receiver. That would push one of those other guys to be the fourth.
That's true.
But it just depends on every individual draft class. So while there are good talents in this wide receiver class, obviously all the way through, I think after the big three, you probably don't take any of those other guys in the top 15. And that's how I probably feel about offensive tackle as well. Although there are some rumors now that the Georgia right tackle, Isaiah Wilson, might go before Andrew Thomas. He's a guy that's, got a rocket in his ass right now, so to speak, traveling up the boards. So you can't teach big for offensive line. It's the Orlando Brown stuff. He's raw, but I just, going for upside there. That's really interesting, though. We'll see if that actually plays out. Right.
Yeah, that might be a lot of smoke being blown here the couple weeks before the draft. Before we get into this talk, we got ourselves our first hashtag Nick's Beer Fund from Terry Randall. Cheers, brother. Appreciate that.
Unfortunately, I saw that he asked. It is not Canadian. It's local because I'm trying to support as local as I can right now. But when time comes around, I'll make sure to produce something there.
Then here we go. Duke Boynton, thank you very much. This is for Carl's Water Fund. Yes, I got the water today.
I don't want to be left out. I got to grab my water.
Got to stay hydrated.
But yeah, no, you're definitely right when you talk about the Broncos. At 15, if any of Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, or Henry Ruggs are there at 15, I think they probably run to the podium. It does seem like an area that this team would love to address. It's probably their wide receiver 2, when you're playing in Pat Shurmur's offense, wide receiver 2 and 3 are going to be heavily utilized. He plays a heck ton of 11 personnel. So it's a need. It just, if they're not there, then you have to readjust. And potentially the Broncos could move up, but that's a topic maybe for later. Today's topic is, let's say the Broncos don't find themselves in a good scenario. One of Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, or Jordan Love are there, and teams are trying to trade up. What are we looking back as far as how far you want to trade down, the capital back, and also, of course, what players you're looking at in that range?
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the talk here today. And also just want to get liberal hater in here. Sorry, Nick. But appreciate your donation. And guys, really appreciate all of you during this time, as it is always great to get on. I look forward to this every Tuesday. I know Nick does too. And so we're glad you guys are joining us. And we'll get to your questions here as soon as we can. We just want to kind of get into this subject a little bit. And so looking at trade back options here, there are quite a few. I mean, the league is always quarterback needy. Yeah. And teams will always bank on potential at the quarterback position. I mean, there's nothing like putting an average quarterback back there and trying to sell that to your fans.
And it does seem like this year, obviously, Burrow is number one. But I would say there's a line in the sand after Jordan Love. Have Tua Tagovailoa, the injuries. Justin Herbert's been solid for many years. And Jordan Love, I mean, apparently the league loves this guy. You could argue maybe Jalen Hurts or Jacob Eason with the upside, but I think if you can get one of those four walking out of this class, you're probably feeling the best.
Yeah. Well, it always seems like quarterbacks, it's either first round, and then there's hardly any guys that go second round. Maybe one guy a draft, maybe.
You never know. I mean, at this point last year, we never thought Drew Lock would make it to the second round. So it's crazy. It's how these people evaluate players. I mean, you never know. EJ Manuel went first round and Drew Lock goes second round. So who knows? It just depends on that one system, that one team falling in love with that one guy.
Exactly. So, if those teams like to trade up, because, I mean, again, they're trying to get ahead of all these other quarterback needy teams. So how about you list off some of the quarterback needy teams behind the Broncos to kind of give us an idea of where the Broncos might be looking to trade back?
Absolutely. I got one of my favorite websites here, Tankathon. They always keep me up to date with where the Broncos are at in the draft order, which has been my friend the past few seasons. But some teams that might want to move up to 8 or 215 with the Broncos. First team that potentially maybe the Dolphins don't go quarterback at 5. And there's some talk that they do like Herbert, but they don't love Tua. It's a lot of smoke right now. But let's say the Dolphins love Isaiah Simmons, that versatile piece up there. They love an offensive lineman. They could not go quarterback at 5. The Dolphins with that 18th pick are an interesting team that might move up for a quarterback. Then there's the Raiders at 19. Obviously, another interesting piece here. Probably not going to trade with the division rival, but if they offer a good deal, it'd be silly to at least not consider it.
Right.
Obviously, the Jags, if they don't go quarterback at 9, they might want to trade up. So that right now it sounds like wide receiver, cornerback, defensive line. They want to go defense, it sounds like, or wide receiver at 9. But if a quarterback's falling, they got capital with the 20th pick. I mean, Gardner Minshew, he's, there's some talent there, obviously good pocket mover, but the arm talent, everything, I just feel like he's more of that, they have themselves a Trevor Siemian right now kind of guy where you can roll with him. You can take a shot. Maybe you get lucky, but probably not the guy that you end up rolling with. And then some interesting teams as well. I think the Vikings are interesting with Kirk Cousins with 2 first-round picks. Next year's is last year in the deal. New England is obviously really interesting. The Saints are a team that's been apparently interested in the quarterback market. And then also you have the Tennessee Titans, that short deal with Tannehill. Green Bay Packers are an interesting team as well. So all those teams, that's the 18th pick for the Dolphins, 19th for the Raiders, 20th for the Jags, 22 or 25 for the Vikings, 23 Patriots, 24 New Orleans, and then 30 for the Green Bay Packers. So there could be a market there.
Right. And then that's the nice thing is that you get into a bidding war. And this is why so often you have to throw out the draft trade chart when it comes to quarterbacks. Even in the middle of the round, if there are teams that want a quarterback that all of a sudden somebody's fallen that they didn't expect and they have them pretty high on their board and they can go get them, especially those teams that are in the early 20s, late 20s that probably would stand no chance to get a quarterback that they want because of where they are in the draft. They'll take a chance, and it could mean the Broncos could really walk out with a really nice draft capital. I'm one that I feel like the Broncos with 11 picks right now, it's going to be hard
now or 11.
I think it's 11.
I can check right now. Keep going.
Okay. You keep checking, but it's hard to find 11 spots on the roster and throw in, they already have, what is it? Like
it's 10,
78 players on their active roster right now. So that would make them only have room for one player that's an undrafted player.
I'll just counter that just because we can be boring and, skipping Shannon or whatever the heyday with Stephen A. Smith is. But the Broncos do have 10 picks right now. So
okay,
there's one that's wrong because they traded away multiple picks for those few players they brought in. Also, I will say that while the Broncos do have that many picks, two out of those 10 picks are compensatory 7th round picks.
Right.
They're essentially UDFA. I mean, if they don't make the team, you wasted a draft pick. It's a comp pick in the 7th round. Right. But that's as fire as it gets. So just to be a little
I do agree with that. I just, it is one of those, again, we're talking about the more you add, the harder it is to find all those spots and make it work. That there is a point where you have to kind of cut off things and just say, either we're going to have to start like cutting some of our 3rd, 4th round picks that we just made and hope they make it onto our practice squad or something like that. Or you're going to have to hope. I mean, my bigger thing would be then more draft capital to 2021. The more options you have for each draft of being able to trade up and down and be able to move and get your guys, the better. I mean, I love that the Broncos have all this draft capital this year to be able to make the moves that they want to make. I mean, they can go get their guys.
Just look at the Steelers trade last year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got that 3rd round pick this year, what is it, pick 83 off the top of my head? That's house money. That's great to have this year. I mean, it's just another pick where not only you can add another lotto pick, but it gives you some capital to move around.
Right, so exactly.
It's great to accumulate that capital. And when you do trades like that also, you can use those picks then to get yourself a AJ Boye, to get yourself a Jarrell Casey the next year. And you're not, you're not really killing yourself in terms of the depth of your draft. So it's really good business if you can accumulate future picks.
Right, exactly. And that kind of fits here then with Chris Sanders coming in with another donation here. Appreciate it. Hey, gents, happy beer day. Thoughts on moving back into the back end of the 1st round for a second 1st rounder or moving some of our 3rds into the 2nd rounder? # Carl's Bowling Shirt Fund, # Nick's Beer Fund. There we go. Perfect. I need more bowling shirts. That's for sure.
Maybe that can be the Building the Broncos shirt. Bowling shirts.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we need. And see, this is again with that draft capital added, that would be a possibility of being able to have, maybe you trade back to like 2022 or 19 or whatever, and then you can trade back into the 1st round, and then you have, you got 2 1st round picks that can really be huge contributors, plus have that 5th year option available for you. I don't disagree with that one bit. I mean, that 5th year option that's huge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially if you're taking a position like cornerback or edge rusher or offensive tackle, it's just giving you more bullets in the chamber.
Right.
So, and you were talking about trading back. You didn't want to have all those picks, but when you have all those picks, it's the same as last year. Then you can get a little bit more aggressive. You can package some of those things, and you can play the draft game where you're picking, what was it, 42, and you hear the Bengals like Dalton Reisner. Okay, you take Dalton Reisner 1 pick before, and then the next pick you trade with the Bengals to come up and get your quarterback. So it just makes it so you can manipulate the board so much better. Right. It's one of my things that I absolutely loved about I hate the Patriots, but like the early 2000s Bill Belichick Patriots, where they just accumulate all those top 100 picks and move around and kick assets with like an inflated price the next year in the draft. I thought that was just brilliant. Why wouldn't you do that every year? Obviously, it's a year-by-year basis. Job security is hard, but if you can, why not?
Right, exactly. No, I get that. And if those guys are gone that I love for the Broncos, I mean, those top 3 wide receivers, the offensive linemen are gone. Brown's gone. Simmons is gone. Okuda's gone. I'm trying to think, is there any others?
Kinlaw with the knee.
Do what?
Kinlaw, I love Kinlaw's upside. The knee scares the poop out of me.
Yeah.
Especially with all the unknowns going right now.
Right, so. Right. I'm with you. I mean, I like him. And if the Broncos picked him, I'd do a nice little fist bump and nice work kind of thing. But it wouldn't be like one of those jumping out of my chair, like if they pick Henry Ruggs. I'm going to be doing high fives around the room, even if there's nobody in there. And my wife and kid, I'll be lifting them up, throwing them up in the air, that kind of thing. Just because I feel like it's such great value for the team and it fits need and value for the team. But it's good.
We should answer some of these questions here before we get going, but we'll come back to this topic because we're going to talk about some of the targets if the Broncos did move down to that.
Right. Yeah, but we've got a lot of questions. Sorry, guys. We've missed so many already. Put them back in here if you've already asked them and we've missed it. But Liberal Hater coming back in with another donation. Really appreciate it. With the money we spent on Gordon, wouldn't it have made more sense to re-sign Wolf or Chris Harris Jr., or maybe gave Lindsey more money and just drafted a running back at some point?
Personally, I probably would have paid another position more money. Maybe I'd have been more involved in Amari Cooper. Maybe I would have wanted another cornerback instead of spending that money on running back. But that's just a personal philosophy. I'm not the biggest proponent of the value of the running back. So it's a 2-year deal. And obviously, Gordon Shermer has a type for running back. I think he can be good in this offense. It's just more of I'm an annoying anti-running back value kind of person. So I would have brought back CHJ, maybe spent money elsewhere, but it is what it is. And Gordon's going to really help this offense, and that'll be fun.
Right. I think the biggest thing for me with Gordon that I love is the fact that because he's a veteran, because we already know that he is a good all-around player, he can help in pass protection. He can help a young quarterback to really know what he's doing, to trust him to be on the field, especially in those third down situations. He's one of the best third down running backs in football. I mean, that's something that's very great value, not only as a receiving option, but also those third and short options. He is great at those. It's not the money is the big issue. It's not the player. The player brings value. It's just the value doesn't line up with the contract and the positional value.
It's not like he's getting an Elliott contract too. There's not crazy guaranteed money. It's short term. Yeah, I can live with it. It's just not what I would have done. So that's life. Also, here we go.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Hashtag BB bowling shirt. See, Carl, we got to talk to Chad. I think that'll be a thing.
Yeah, I think so. I'll do that. All right, Weagle coming in. I really appreciate this. What's the reason why Derek Brown is falling in mocks? Is Kinlaw now a safer choice than Brown since he has a reported higher ceiling? Thanks, guys.
I would definitely not say. Go ahead. You should.
I'll start on this one. So this is a matter of preference, I guess, a little bit, because they are two very different defensive tackles. Brown is you pretty much know what you're getting. He has one of the highest floors of any player in this draft, and he's going to be a great two gap player that's going to be able to hold his spot. He's going to be great in the run game. He's going to offer some in the pass game. He's not going to be an elite pass rusher. That's the main issue of why some are putting Kinlaw above Derek Brown, because Kinlaw does have that potential to become a top 5 interior pass rusher in the NFL. And now he hasn't reached that potential, and he's not even close to that kind of potential yet. But you can see it on tape. You can see the flashes where Derek Brown, like I said, you know what you're getting, but it's not quite as high of a ceiling. So it's just a matter of risk and reward here.
And again, the biggest thing for me is Kinlaw at that knee. That scares me. That's going to scare a lot of teams. And Kinlaw has a very fluctuating draft stock. I wouldn't be shocked if he went in the top 8. I wouldn't be shocked if he fell, the end of the first round. Those injuries this year, it's going to be totally different than any year we've seen in the past. Luckily for Kinlaw, you did get to see him at the Senior Bowl. You did get to see him at the Combine. So there is not a complete unknown about him. But it just adds a variable that we have no idea, considering teams can't bring these guys in and have their own doctor to see them. It's no idea. No idea. So I know that you don't want to hear that coming here listening to experts, but it's just a variable that we've never seen before. Right,
exactly. That's something we could talk about a little bit, is just how much this is going to affect the draft, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But Mr. Boggins coming in here, this is a great question. Who's going to be the surprise reach in the first round of the draft? The Clelin Ferrell, if you will.
Ooh. Man, I feel like the Clelin Ferrell pick almost made the Daniel Jones pick lose some of its luster too, because Daniel Jones going as that next quarterback, I don't think people saw that. It was Haskins or Locke, but you never know. Things crazy happen. Let me see a crazy one. I think maybe we'll see CJ Henderson go much earlier than people think. Maybe CJ Henderson even all the way up to the Cardinals. I mean, who knows? But that could be a player that he's been rising up crazy fast. Another crazy secondary player potentially. Maybe Jeremy Chin will go much higher than people think. I mean, he's only 22 years old. He's got a lot of tools. Teams are looking for that kind of nickel safety hybrid. I mean, there's more hybrids in that secondary than ever before. So getting a guy with that upside, I could see him maybe even be the first safety off the board.
Yeah. We already talked about him, but Jordan Love.
Yeah.
We're talking about maybe mid-round pick. I've seen mocks where he's been top 5, top 9 kind of thing. Jacksonville could be that surprise team that decides, hey, we don't believe in Gardner Minshew, or maybe we want that great competition between these two that secures for us that maybe one of them is going to work out. So it wouldn't surprise me if they decided to kind of take a risk there. Raiders at 12. I've heard that they are really high on Jordan Love. And so wouldn't surprise me if he went that high. And I mean, that's not quite it's a little bit of a surprise just because of the season that he just had. And just, he is such an unknown. Yeah. There's the highlight plays that you're just like, man, this guy, he's got something. And then you just see the weird plays that you're just like, what were you doing, buddy? I mean, it's so weird.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the reason it's unpredictable is because nobody guessed it. So maybe we'll see something different. Like maybe Tua will fall to the first round. I mean, maybe that he's been more of a media hype than anything. That's something that could be an opposite of a surprise fall or a surprise reach. So
yeah, Tony here saying Jordan Love to the Chargers at 6.
Very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Chargers getting Jordan Love depends almost the most on if the Dolphins love a single quarterback and want to move. Because from what I'm picking up from, again, just as vicarious, I'm not talking with Daniel Jeremiah on the day-to-day, but it sounds like Chargers would be interested in moving up for Tua. However, there's no way in heck they're going to outcompete the Dolphins. Yeah. So if the Dolphins are fine with Tua or Herbert, and that might open it up for the Chargers actually to move up and trade for Tua. So who knows? I mean, quarterbacks change everything every year.
Yeah. Here's one from Robert Caslow coming in. With trading back, are you open to horse trading with round 3 picks or keeping all picks?
I love to trade horses. I wish I had more money. I could just trade horses any day. I don't understand the question.
Well, I think, if you trade back, are you keeping all the picks? Are you just taking picks at where they are just so you have more eggs in the basket that they might work out? I'm
trying to get more top 50, top 100 picks, as many as possible, moving up, getting specific guys. I mean, you're probably moving on from, a Duke Dawson, Isaac Yiadom, and I know that, you'd like to have better depth on this team, but I also want better starters. And honestly, I'd rather have better starters than better depth. So if you have those picks, I'd be aggressive. I'd be looking to, package some of those together and move up for specific players.
All right. Let's see. We got
one here from Chase.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Chase Wellner here, $2. Thank you very much. Interesting picture you got there. I like the crayons. Think San Francisco would choose a defensive line over the big 3. From what I have been picking up, again, just trying to keep my ear to the ground and read as many people who are in the know as far as San Francisco, it does sound like San Francisco wants one of the big 3 wide receivers. I mean, they have a bunch of wide receivers, but they don't have a true number 1. They have Deebo Samuel, who's a really good player, but he needs to be almost like a secondary receiver. You need to pair him with somebody. I mean, Deebo Samuel didn't come on until they got Emmanuel Sanders. You need to have a little bit. It's the same stuff with Cortland Sutton, but anyway, you need to have another weapon there to emphasize Deebo Samuel. Get him in situations where, he's the guy who has less coverage this time. We're going to go to him. So I think that wide receiver is the number 1 for them. Yeah. However, if wide receivers are all gone for them, which is possible at 13, I mean, if you could see guys go 9, 11, 12, very easily could happen with the 49ers. I could see them go DL, but I also think that offensive tackle and cornerback are also positions they'd look into because, I mean, Joe Staley's older and cornerback Richard Sherman's older, and outside of Richard Sherman, their quarterbacks are not good.
Right. I mean, their number 2 got hurt, and then the number 3 came in, played okay, and then the number 2 tried to come back and was terrible, and it was a whole mess. But question for you then, since they're not looking for – I'd say Ruggs and Deebo Samuel bring a lot of the same tools. I mean, they're a little different, but they bring a lot of the same kind of plays that you would want to run with each of them. Would that mean for San Francisco that they're looking more at like a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy? Is that trying to get that number 1 than a Henry Ruggs?
I don't think that Henry Ruggs and Deebo Samuel are the same. I think that Deebo Samuel is much more of kind of a slot kind of running back / wide receiver type, where Henry Ruggs almost exclusively lined up on the right side flanker. I mean, far side, where you'd see Samuel's such a good blocker. It's beautiful because they can use Kittle, use Check, and Samuel to create these outside zone runs where some of your best blockers are those guys on the edge. But I think that the 49ers are in a situation where Samuel is, like we talked about, a better secondary weapon, where you need a guy who's going to be more volume based. A guy like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy that you're going to feed them constantly. Where Henry Ruggs might be the best wide receiver 2 in this class because he can do so much without touching the ball. He can create for others in that regard. So I think there's an interesting discussion to have. Like the Broncos have Cortland Sutton. Maybe Henry Ruggs makes more sense for them because they don't need a receiver who needs a high target load, a high share to complement the offense. So it's an interesting balance and debate to have there. I do think that Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb would make the most sense, but you never know. Any of them would be gorgeous in that offense.
Yeah. All right, here's a good one from Pickle. Long
N201100. No. Is that his phone number?
I hope. I don't know. Ladies, there you go.
That's 4 numbers. Never mind.
Just kidding. But so stoked for the draft. What blue chip cornerback could we possibly draft, and is that a smart move? So for me, I'd say there's 2 cornerbacks that stand a chance to be true blue chip cornerbacks in this draft. I know you're going to disagree with me on one of them because you're not.
I won't disagree. I just don't think it's the fit.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. But of course, Okudah from OSU. I mean, that's an easy one. He's clearly a top 10 player in this draft, top cornerback. I mean, pretty much on every board. I don't think I've ever seen anybody put him below number 1.
I've seen a few with Henderson number 1.
Have you? Okay. CJ Henderson is the other guy then. Now, there is an argument that CJ Henderson offers more upside because of the athletic tools and what he brings to the table. And if he reaches his full potential, he has that top 5 cornerback potential. Now, of course, the issue for the Broncos is this last year, especially, he was not great at tackling. Now, I will say his freshman and sophomore year, he was much more involved in wanting to tackle. This last year, he seemed to be a little bit more making business decisions about when to go and when not to. So you have to kind of weigh that of, is that what you can expect when he gets to the NFL? Or is that just kind of a, hey, I know I'm going to get paid. Why would I risk my body and risk my draft status?
Massive upside. I mean, he's the Mekhi Becton of cornerbacks in this class. You know, if he hits on all his tools, he easily could be the best cornerback in this class. Yep. And I could see him being picked at 15 just because the tools are that tremendous and the value of cornerback is that high. I mean, you could argue that cornerback is the second most valuable position on a football team. I wouldn't fight you, honestly. If you can find a great cornerback, I mean, Stephon Gilmore last year pretty much carried. I mean, there's depth that matters, but was obviously the best defensive player in football last year and made that Patriots defense what it was. I mean, you saw with Tre'Davious White with the Bills. I mean, cornerback is super valuable. But your beer cracking skills lack. I'm very upset, Duke. But anyway, I don't think that Henderson. If the Broncos played the Wade Phillips style defense, I would be much more inclined to lean into him. I just don't think that for the Broncos specifically, I don't love him. I'll admit to you, though, I need to go back and watch the 2018 tape. I watched the 2019 tape. It gave me visions of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie essentially ducking Percy Harvin in the Super Bowl because he wanted nothing to do with that smoke. And that, I mean, if you're not bringing it, defense is as much about attitude as anything. So that left me a bad taste in my mouth, unlike this one here. But that's I could see him at 15. I would rather trade back. I would rather take every single offensive tackle, the big 4, all the wide receivers, Brown, Kinlaw, Simmons, Okudah, over Henderson. Henderson might be that next guy. And I was actually arguing with somebody today. Would you take Justin Jefferson over Henderson? Probably not. But all the big 3 wide receivers, big 4 offensive tackles, I probably would.
Yeah. Understandable. I'm higher on him. I'm banking on that upside at that point. 15 to get a true number 1 cornerback and to have a guy that could be a top 5 cornerback in the league. And like I said, he's not the greatest fit. He's more of that true man coverage guy. If we were playing the Wade Phillips defense, he'd be much higher on our boards kind of thing. I still think, because I have watched some of his 2018, and you see a guy that was actually pretty aggressive in coming up and helping tackling in the running game. And so I just feel like it was more of a making business decisions. I mean, you saw that with a lot of guys coming, a lot of the guys that knew they're going to be top 10, top 15 picks. You see that kind of happen where they just make those kind of decisions. I mean, one could argue Laviska Shenault. Now, whether it probably didn't help him much this year.
He should have sat out almost the entire year and it'd have been better for his stock. But that's
it probably would have been. It probably would have been. So, just a lot of things to think about there. But blue and orange and blue, or bleeds orange and blue coming in. I always appreciate the conversations on Twitter with bleeds orange and blue. And so no
That's
comment.
a hard one for you.
I know. I don't know why I'm messing up that. I want to start with blue. You're my boy, Blue. No comment. Just popped into the show I'm struggling today. Just popped in to show some love. Keep it up. Stay safe. At Bleeds Orange and Blue on the Twitter machine. Be well. Everybody go follow that guy. It was worth having a conversation. He's got some great insights. Really appreciate that you're listening to the show. And
also, this is a good time to say thank you to some of our super chats in the past. I Bleed Broncos at their Alron86. Obviously, we got at Paul 80026. Terry Randall always coming in clutch. Chris Sanders, Nad Ludlow, Bronx Legend. Hope you're doing okay, Bronx Legend, and Brian Greenfield. So really appreciate you guys, and we'll get back to the comments stream here. But again, wanted to thank you guys.
All right, Weagle coming in. Dream
Again.
pick. Yeah, appreciate that, Weagle. Dream pick at 46. Mine would be Cesar Ruiz, your boy.
I mean, I feel like I almost like Cesar Ruiz because I was so much earlier than everyone else. So now I just need to plant that flag harder in the ground. I love Cesar Ruiz a lot. Pick 46, my dream pick. Man.
I'll say mine. I know it is. Jalen Johnson.
Jalen Johnson is your dream pick. I really like Jalen Johnson. I feel like his hips are a little stiff. Just a little bit. He's like a little bit cornerback safety. Like I feel like he'll be at cornerback, and then if that doesn't work out, he's going to go to safety and be very good. And I think he'd be great in the scheme. I just worry a little bit about the hips.
Okay.
As I do my Shakira impression over here.
Shakira.
God, what a brilliant halftime show. Anyway, moving on. My number 46, actually, not moving on. I'm going to go with Austin Jackson. I think that Austin Jackson, and it's a very much a boomer bust pick. I get that. That scares me too. But I think Austin Jackson's combination of movement skills, length, just general athleticism and youth. I think he's 20 years old right now. He's very young. He missed an entire offseason of conditioning because he donated bone marrow to save his sister's life. So, I mean, he lacked strength and technique last year. Well, he didn't practice the entire freaking time. And the fact that he has all these tools, I mean, obviously it comes down to the heart and the intelligence at that point, and I can't answer that. I don't know him personally. But if you can get him in this system, next year, odds are you're rolling with Garrett Bowles at left tackle. Odds are you're rolling with Juwan James at right tackle. I think he's got as much upside as anybody in this class. I mean, to be completely honest, as a pass protector, especially if you get him at 46, give him a year under Munchak, let him, sculpt him up, and then move on to Garrett Bowles the next year. I think that would be my dream pick. So if you can get like Henry Ruggs and then Austin Jackson, definitely going with some blue bloods there. But that would be my ideal situation right now.
Okay. Ron W coming in here. Appreciate it. What's up, guys? What late round offensive tackles are you high on? Need Bowles' future replacement this year. Hashtag Nick Strink. Hashtag Carl Hydrate. Hashtag DB for life.
I'm going to tear out some hearts here. I don't think I'm high on any late round offensive tackles. I think that the first 10, pretty darn good. Maybe if you want to call Shadiq Charles late round because he's got massive upside, but there's some off-field concerns there, and he's just super inconsistent. But I think it pretty much falls off a cliff in the late rounds. I mean, maybe there'd be a guy like, maybe Scott France, former teammate of Dalton Reisner at Kansas State, redshirt senior, solid player. I just don't know if he has the upside, but I feel like if you're taking offensive tackle, it needs to be in the first 3 rounds this year. I think there's going to be a drop-off after that first 100 picks.
Yeah.
So trick question. Maybe Alex Lewis, he's big and long. You're pulling a Julian Davenport, please God, make it. But because he's big and long, but. Yeah.
I mean, Ben Barch, I don't know how far he's going to fall. Probably more of a mid-round pick.
Might be a guard.
Might be. I've talked to somebody that knows coaches there, and they are really high on him. The coaches just rave about the kid. So at that point, I'm willing to bank on some of that.
And I see Doc Bear looks like he's coming in here. Asked about Pert. He said he's not an offensive line expert. Doc Bear, don't sell yourself short. You are an offensive line expert. I hope you're doing well out in California.
I've seen a lot of, and after this, I thought we'd get into some of that because I've seen the comments have been a lot of offensive line talk. But Holden Adams, I wanted to get this in here. Thank you for the donation. Thoughts on Mohamed Barry and Isaiah Coulter?
Mohamed Barry, absolutely off the board. Nebraska, right? Terrible. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, interesting late round flyer, but he's a guy like when you draft, who was the guy from Washington a few years ago? Keyshawn Bierria. I would be just as surprised if he made an impact as if he was off the team. 50-50 shot. Isaiah Coulter, though, that's an interesting player. I actually like him a lot. He came out early from Rhode Island, which typically you don't see from a small school like that. He tested pretty darn well. I thought he looked really good in the gauntlet. So Isaiah Coulter, I mean, I'm in a mock right now, and I just took Isaiah Coulter in the 6th round as the Chargers GM. Yes, I know. Forgive me. It's not my fault. They broke me into it. You're in that one too, Carl. So.
I am. I'm the Who am I? I'm the Bengals and the Ravens.
I'm the Seahawks and the Chargers, so West Coast, I guess, today. But I love Isaiah Coulter, especially late rounds. I think he's got a chance to sneak in, maybe he even in the top 100. I mean, it's a deep wide receiver class, but he's one. If the Broncos took, let's say, Jalen Reagor round 2, if they took Isaiah Coulter round 4, I would zero complaints. I'd be really excited about the upside.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, obviously the guy was a playmaker in college and tested well.
So smooth. He looked so smooth. I think tests were good. I thought the gauntlet was even better. He was one of the better gauntlet runners.
Yeah. And I mean, the Broncos really should be adding 2 to 3 wide receivers to that room or to the competition through draft, undrafted free agent. You know, I don't think he'll make it to undrafted free agent, but yeah, just because he tested so well, he'll get drafted by somebody. And
also, the fact that he was at the combine at all, I think. Right. I mean, typically you see, what is it? Only 70% of the combine invitees get drafted, something like that. I think you're going to be close to 95 this year because those guys had the medicals, and it's a different year. Again, the variables with the life of the NFL right now. So I do want to say I do like Coulter, but my day 3 wide receiver of choice is John Hightower because of the speed, the vertical ability, and not only deep speed but horizontal speed as well. I like John Hightower a lot.
Yeah. All right. So I did want to get into this since I've seen it in the comments a lot about the offensive line. I've seen comments like this from Tony. Offensive tackle should be a round 1. I mean, it's a need. I mean, let's just be honest about it. But it's going to be hard to find a guy that's going to come in year 1 and be better than Bowles or James if James is healthy.
And the thing is, people say, James is always hurt. You can't depend on him. Yes, that's true. But are you drafting edge rusher at 15 because Bradley Chubb's coming off his second ACL on the same knee?
Right.
No, you have to depend on him given the structure of how the team is built. It sucks, but it's the reality of the situation. You do want to have a better offensive tackle in general. It doesn't have to be offensive tackle at 15, though. You don't have to do it. This is a good enough class, and we saw the improvement last year. I mean, I think it was Drew Lock who had the third lowest sack rate over the final 5 games of the season. I mean, going from Joe Flacco to Drew Lock completely changed the dynamic of the offense and the pass blocking because you have a quarterback that can move around a little bit and be a playmaker. So,
right.
It's such a difference maker. So we'll see. And I do think that, if an offensive tackle is the best player on the board at 15, that changes things. Obviously we have to have that discussion. And it's same with defensive line. But I think that the offensive tackle situation is better in the short term than people give credit. And I think some people just have made up their mind about Garrett Bowles. He played much better down the final 5 games, down the final 7 games. Juwan James coming back. You have a chance to have a above average offensive tackle duo. I mean, you really do, but it's
and
just
even with James injured the entire year, they were still a top 15 offensive line in football.
I mean, you're talking about Ronald Leary getting hurt. Dalton Reisner, since the Buffalo game, played with a lower body injury. He was not the same after that lower body injury. You got down to your 3rd level offensive tackle. I mean, Jake Rogers versus Max Crosby, that was an assault. I mean, he should have filed charges because Jake Rogers got beat up so bad by that 4th round rookie from Eastern Washington or Michigan. I can't remember which one, but the offensive line, there's so much synergy in offense. I think people don't appreciate that. I mean, you can see the difference in Will Fuller on the field for the Texans, and the sack rate for Deshaun Watson goes down by 10% or 10% to 17%, something crazy. There's a major difference with a wide receiver on the field.
I think it was 12% to 7%.
I have it right here. Keep talking. I will find it.
Okay. And the other thing is, I mean, I look at San Francisco. Last year, there was a point where both of their starting offensive tackles were injured and off the field. That offense still functioned. I mean, obviously, they were a Super Bowl contending team. I mean, yes, they were both back for the playoffs, but they were missing their guys for good chunks of the season, and their offense was still functioning at a high level. Where you look at some of these teams where they lose a playmaker like a Will Fuller, and I'll even throw in John Ross. I did the statistics. He played in 8 games this last year. Cincinnati had a terrible offense, but they were 4 points worse in the games that John Ross did not play. So he is worth, I mean, and that's John Ross, the guy that can't catch anything. And and he's injured half the time anyway, but still, it just shows playmakers do matter. This is why you're seeing these guys getting paid. I mean, Julio Jones is making over $20 million. You just saw Cooper get $20 million a year. There's a reason those guys are getting paid more than an offensive tackle. Teams value them more in today's NFL and what they can bring to the table because of that spacing that they can bring and how they open the entire offense. And like you said, it's one of those, I mean, if you could find an offensive tackle, that's great. But at the same time, because you have these athletic quarterbacks coming into the league, it negates some of that. I mean, the Chiefs last year, I mean, their offensive line was banged up. Even Patrick Mahomes was banged up. And that offense still obviously functioned at a very high level because they had a quarterback that could make things happen and they had weapons that could get open down the field.
And to further that point about the Chiefs, I mean, former first overall pick, Eric Fisher, left tackle, he went up against Nick Bosa in the Super Bowl. Nick Bosa had the highest pressure rate of any pass rusher in the history of the Super Bowl against against Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he had a single, or maybe he had one sack. I know there was almost a forced fumble too, game-changing play, but they didn't recover the ball. But I mean, if you have a quarterback that can make plays, that's a playmaker, that's not a statue back there, you can really help that offensive line. I mean, look at Josh Rosen versus Kyler Murray coming into that Arizona offense. It's really something I'm learning too as an evaluator. You have to have a quarterback that can make plays. Right. It's becoming less of a point guard, stand and shoot position and more of a playmaker where you need a guy who can, get in the lane and make something happen.
Right.
So it's big.
Right. All right. I did want to get this one up for you. Nad Ludlow just turned 24. Happy birthday. My hips are a bit stiff too.
I don't have any excuses. I am just I was going to say I'm a stiff person, but that sounds worse than it should. Anyway, moving on. So anyway, back to the general point here. I know we see a lot of comments coming in. We still need to finish off our general discussion here, Carl. We're talking about the Broncos potentially trading back. So we're looking at the trade back here. Who are guys that you are interested in? Let's say all four of the big offensive tackles are gone. All three of the big wide receivers are gone. Both defensive tackles are gone. One of those guys is probably going to be, let's say you trade back, person's there you don't like, and you're picking 20 to 30. Who are you targeting?
Well, that's a great question. So some guys that, I mean, if CJ Henderson begins to fall a little bit, I doubt that, but that would be a guy that I consider. I mean, Denzel Mims will be in that area. Xavier McKinney, if he's somewhere in that area. I saw a few people talking about your boy Ruiz.
Cesar Ruiz, if they're picking like 30, I'd be more interested.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't listened to my two guys yet. If I'm trading back, I would love, and I'm a wide receiver guy, definitely for this offense, especially the big three. But if the Broncos can trade back to that 20 to 30 range and walk out with one of Jeff Gladney or Christian Fulton, I am a pig in mud. I would be so ecstatic with either of those guys in that range. I think they're both tremendous fits for this defense. I think both have great upside, both have good versatility, and they're both, I mean, I have CJ Henderson for the Broncos, the number 4 cornerback, just because I really do like Christian Fulton's tape. I really like Jeff Gladney's tape. I think they're close enough. And if you can get those guys 20 to 30, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah. If Andrew Thomas does fall, like they're talking, that would be an option. Maybe even Josh Jones. I wouldn't mind him either. So, those would be some names that would definitely be thrown out. I see a few here. Ruiz, Rager, Gladney from Era John. I mean, those are some, depending on where they're at.
I love the secondary pieces there. I just keep looking at the names. A couple names we haven't talked about yet that would be interesting would be Kenneth Murray, somebody that Cecil Lammey of 104.3 The Fan has been saying the Broncos might be looking at 15. I don't love Kenneth Murray at 15. I'll be completely honest. In fact, I'd say I'm against it just because I don't see the coverage ability. But if they're picking 20 to 30, you can get another second-round pick or a future pick, get some good assets. I'd be interested in Kenneth Murray. I love Kenneth Murray's attitude. I don't see the coverage ability right now on tape, and that might maybe make me lead to want to take Patrick Queen more, but they're so close. It's like arguing again. It's a Mekhi Becton versus Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is much safer. Mekhi Becton has much higher ceiling. I think that Patrick Queen, the coverage ability he shows, the movement skills that he shows, the fluidity he shows, it's better than Kenneth Murray, I think. But Kenneth Murray, from a snap-to-snap basis, I feel much more comfortable taking him. So that's kind of what you're weighing against right now. So guys that I'm leaning into, you hit the nail on the head, though. I think that value, that pick, 20 to 30, I am really hoping to get one of Jeff Gladney, who's the cornerback, Christian Fulton, or Xavier McKinney, who is essentially a nickel cornerback and would be he'd be the Jimmy Ward of this defense. When Vic Fangio was on the 49ers, he drafted Jimmy Ward out of Northern Illinois to play that safety nickelback hybrid position. Broncos used Will Parks a crud ton last year. I think it was like 7/8 of his total snaps came from nickel, which is an incredibly high amount. I mean, he was the nickel cornerback for the last 5 weeks of the season. And Xavier McKinney could come that and play that very well. So I love any three of those guys. That just tends to be where the value is drawing me if you're talking end of the first.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you have to think Vic Fangio is always thinking about wanting to strengthen his area of expertise, the defense. Yeah. I mean, that's who wouldn't? You want your unit to look good. And so I'm sure that even there at 15, there's got to be some guys defensively that they're considering. I know there's guys in the building that like Kinlaw a lot, guys that like Brown. So there's options there. I did see this comment. I just kind of wanted to, what about Jefferson, guys? He is really good, and he will be there at 15 from Robert Kitchens. Here's my issue with Jefferson. It's not that he's a really good receiver, and he does everything good, but he doesn't do anything at an elite level. And that's for a first-round pick wide receiver. I want something that I can look at and say, this is why this guy is going to turn into something. This is why this guy's going to be worth it. Jefferson is like the perfect example of what a good number 2 wide receiver is in the NFL. He's a nice complementary piece. He's going to do his job well. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes on the field. But again, it's just not a guy that makes me jump out of my seat seeing the stars of this guy's going to turn into a great player, somebody that everybody in the league is talking about.
My biggest thing is, can he win consistently vertically, and can he win on the boundary? We saw the slot last year. That's where he was primarily used. And with that offense that the LSU team was running, you're going to have a lot of slot fades, etc. There's some value there, but I think I would take Denzel Mims before him just because that vertical boundary ability is a little bit more, it's a harder skill set to find. It's more valuable. But at 15, I wouldn't take Jefferson. I'm taking any of the 3 big wide receivers at 15. I'm not taking Jefferson. Again, we're talking about trading back to 20 to 30. No issue with Jefferson.
Yeah.
None. I'd be fine with him there.
What about, because I mean, just listing one receiver we haven't listed is Ayuk.
Oh, I probably have Ayuk almost neck and neck with Jalen Reagor. I like Ayuk a lot. I guess I'm just scared of Ayuk in regards to he takes a false step a lot out of his stance when the ball is snapped, and that loses some ability for him. His route running is about as limited as any of these top wide receivers, and I don't know if he can beat press. I mean, coming out of the gate, can he beat press? Because I did not see it in college. Yeah. So I think he's got massive upside. I mean, he's really natural after the catch. He's a natural mover, got long hands, but I think he's got a lower floor and brings less value than Jefferson and Mims. So he's right there with Reagor for me.
Okay. Well, Terry Randall coming in with another donation. Always appreciate it, Terry. And of course, shout out for the smash the like. Appreciate that. Always, guys, you are the best fans. It is so much fun every week to talk about this and get into all these conversations. And the hour goes so fast. We're almost up in time here, and it's frustrating. And hopefully, as we get closer to the draft, maybe Chad's kind of going, "Hey guys, you can go longer." I hope so. But another name that we did not list here, Queen.
I talked about Queen.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
You zoned out. I was talking about Queen. He's a much more natural player in coverage than Kenneth Murray. So it's the Mekhi Becton, which is Kenneth Murray versus, or no, Mekhi Becton would be the Queen versus Kenneth Murray, who's the Andrew Thomas. So, it's definitely somebody that you consider at 20 to 30. And if you can get value in none of your guys that you love there at 15, trade back. Personally, I am a little bit more infatuated with the defensive backs you can get there, but I could see a linebacker there. And at 15, I would not be happy with Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen. Be honest, 20 to 30, you're getting house money there. It's like, last year at 10, I wouldn't have loved Noah Fant. At 20, with all the capital they got, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. A couple other wide receivers that have been listed here. Van Jefferson, he's more of a mid-round, 3rd, 4th, 5th round kind of guy. I don't know. He has his one really good game that everybody points to and watches and says, man, look at that. He's got some route running ability. It's just, how much are you going to bank on that one really good game when you're looking at these kind of prospects? And he didn't always have the greatest talent there on offense with Florida, but it was okay. It wasn't great, but considering in the SEC,
I wish he wasn't 24 years old.
Yeah.
I feel like he's going to come in and how much better is he actually going to get? He's older. His dad, I think, was an NFL wide receiver or wide receiver coach, maybe both. And he's, he played at Ole Miss. He transferred because, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, even DeMarcus Lodge outperformed him there. So he transferred to Florida and was good there, but he's older. I don't know how much value he brings. Round 4, maybe the last pick of the 3rd round, I'd be interested. I prefer guys who can stress the defense vertically with speed. And some people are listing some other guys. KJ Hamler, interesting player. Edwards from South Carolina, interesting player, big slot. Another one that I saw somebody list. Michael Pittman, very good jump ball receiver. It's a good draft class. All these guys, you're talking about my guys that are in tier 2 or 3 or tier 4. I mean, good class, all top 100 picks. But it'll be interesting.
They haven't listed one of my favorites, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Okay, here's a good question. This is specific. Do you like Donovan Peoples-Jones over Bryan Edwards?
I do, just because of the upside.
Okay, Edwards' tape is really good.
It is. It just, you see the tools. The draft is about looking at tools. It's not about the stats. It's not always about how well they did in college. This is a conversation we had to have about Ruggs not too long ago with some people. Looking at his stats and saying, well, look, he didn't put up 1,000 yards. That means he's not going to be very good in the NFL. You're looking at the tools. And obviously Donovan Peoples-Jones, he blew up the combine. You see some of the plays show up in college. Now, he didn't have the greatest quarterback to take advantage of his skill set, but he also didn't help his quarterback on some of the things he did. His initial get off, he's got a false step there.
Yes, he does.
And it just ruins any kind of ability to really take advantage of his athleticism. And so if he can get with a really good wide receiver coach, which I do think the Broncos have here, and fix that, I think he could really explode onto the scene. For him, it's going to be a matter of where he goes and how much time a team is willing to give him to develop.
Yeah. I watched a good amount of Big Ten football, obviously, and I always knew the name Donovan Peoples-Jones. How could you not?
Right.
It's a pretty awesome name. But he never was the best player on the field for me. This past year, Michigan had a wide receiver who I feel like not many people are talking about yet, but could be a good player. And I think his name was David Bell, who kind of played a little bit more slot, but I thought he was the guy to go to. And even Shea Patterson, not a great college quarterback, but I just wanted more from Donovan Peoples-Jones. So again, you're betting on the upside there. With Bryan Edwards, it's the injury. He's another guy with where that injury is there, and that could drop him out of the top 100. But I personally like the tape a little bit better. And that was on an offense with Deebo Samuel. South Carolina quarterback play was equally terrible.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It was bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The biggest thing is the injury.
Yeah. Thoughts on KJ Hamler from Nad Ludlow, since we're talking about wide receivers here. The issue there, one, he's pretty small. He's probably going to be mostly a slot guy in the NFL. He's not going to be able to move around a whole lot.
He's a gadget.
Right. And his range. He's got the speed. If you hit him in stride, the guy's gone. And there are plays where he was against some very, very good cornerbacks. The game against OSU, he made some outstanding plays once he had the ball in his hands. The issue is his catch radius is just so small. And since he's already small on top of that, it limits a little bit of what you can do with him, and especially with a quarterback like Drew Lock. I love Drew Lock, but one of his issues is he is a little inconsistent with his accuracy. And so you need a wide receiver that has a little bit of range. This is kind of why, for me, as much as I love route runners, Jerry Jeudy has dropped to my number 3 wide receiver, because I don't know if he is, for the Broncos, the greatest match with Drew Lock, where Lamb and Ruggs have shown a little bit more ability to go up and make plays that are not perfect throws. And they're willing to go make catches in traffic. Because, Drew Lock is not afraid to throw in traffic.
Every time, the thing is with the wide receivers, if you say any of them are number 3, you're going to get a reaction from me. Because you have to rank one of them 3. I keep copying out. It's 1A, 1B, and 1C.
It is, but if I had to put them in order, and I even got this, Jeudy 3 at 3. Are you high? No, I'm not.
High on life, baby.
That's not legal here in Kansas, so I'm not high. But anyway, it just because of the fit. That's what it really comes down to me when I've ranked these wide receivers, because I love all 3. I really do. And in different teams, I would have them in different orders. But for the Broncos right now, Judy is probably falling to my number 3.
And okay, Carl, I'm going to ask you about this. Mr. Orange been very active here on the thread today.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've got him up here yet. Interesting question here, and this is kind of one of the more interesting, I guess, opinions that is coming out here. And I don't agree with it personally, but I do think there's merit to it. I mean, obviously, there's merit to it. Mr. Orange is not an idiot. He's not saying that Drew Lock's the absolute worst ever, and the Broncos are draft edge rusher in the top 15. Obviously, offensive line is an area that the Broncos have been needing to improve for a while. So his comment here: Shermer offense with 2 number 1 running backs, 1A, 1B, again, kind of cheating the system here. Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton. That's pretty good. You think you need a wide receiver? You need offensive line to give him time to throw. Add wide receiver number 2. Probably he means later. So I'm going to ask you your opinion on that. What are the Broncos weak at right now on the offense? And this will probably be the last question before we get out of here, unless anybody tosses in something that's really interesting. But I think this is an interesting question because you see a lot of people, and I really try not to be like this. I am pro wide receiver, the big 3, if possible. But you have to let the board fall to you. You never know how it's going to turn out. But there's a lot of offensive line at 15 or fail type of people. So what is your opinion on that? So,
I mean, if they take offensive line, I'm going to be very understanding of that because, again, you might be losing Bowles this next year. James's contract, you could get out of it next year if he again gets hurt. So you need an offensive tackle for the future no matter what. So that makes it a huge need. Now, you could also do where you can move somebody into guard and just move Glasgow to center because he can play it. Now, they are planning on playing him at guard. So you could still find a way to get a guy on the field year 1, but it complicates things with that offensive tackle position right now. So that is an issue. Again, I don't know how much a rookie is going to come in and beat Bowles or James out if they're both healthy.
I was more okay with it when I thought the Broncos were not going to pay big for an offensive lineman this offseason.
Yeah.
And you had, Wilkinson as the starting right guard, Morris as the starting center. You could talk me into moving up even, but taking Tristan Wirfs or Jedrick Wills, because not only you're offering depth and competition for right tackle and left tackle, which are question marks, but you're having a guard in there. After paying Glasgow, though, you're putting one of those guys either traded or off the team. You're stuck with Juwan James, but Glasgow's there. Maybe you move Glasgow to center, but it does not sound like that's the plan. It does not sound like they want to do that. They like Patrick Morris. There's other centers. So I don't know if that's the pick. If it's the best player available at 15, I get it, but it's not the hole on this team that I think wide receiver depth behind Sutton.
Right. So the other thing here, 2 number 1 running backs, they're not going to be on the field at the same time for very many plays. So you're limited on, then you're going to only have 3 playmakers on the field, and none of them are big time players that they're going to threaten to go deep and beat you. Noah Fant, he ran a 4.5 for a tight end. That's really fast, but there's still a lot of safeties that can run that kind of speed. And so you're not going to be as worried about being beat over the top. Sutton has proven that he can win over the top, but it's more, his route running is
power
improved.
Forward.
Right, exactly. I'm going to go out and jump you. Yeah. and then running back, you're limited again on just kind of the routes that you run from the running back position. And so it's a lot more the shorter, the only real deep running back route is the wheel route.
Yeah.
That's it. So again, you're just limited a little bit on what your offense can do if those are your only options. And that's why wide receiver number 2 and adding speed to this offense is such a big deal, because it's not only that it opens it up for the offense of that number 2 spot, but it opens things up for Noah Fant working over the middle. It opens things up for Sutton and all the routes that he's going to do. It opens things up for the running back, where teams have to worry about keeping that safety back, and it's helping in the running game. It's been proven that a great wide receiver will mean more to the running game than a great running back.
You didn't hear that from me.
Yes, that was for me. But, Lindsey can line up in the slot is another one that I see here in some of the questions. Lindsey's not a great route runner. He's terrible at it.
He's such a weird player because he's small. His best runs are against those duos up the A gap. He's such a good vision. I went back and watched Garrett Bowles over the Vikings game, the Bills game, and the second Chargers game yesterday. I had some time. Let's see how Garrett Bowles played down the stretch. Everson Griffin beat him up. I actually thought he did really well against Joey Bosa. Actually,
Yeah.
that Chargers game, he was really good. But Lindsey's vision, Lindsey's ability up the middle, small guy, I don't care. He can see it. He's patient. He's got good bursts. He's a really good in between the tackles runner. You think he's Darren Sproles? He's not. He's work done. He's work done. So, all right. Any comments here before we get out of here? I mean, this is going to be interesting to, obviously we have the draft is going to be via Zoom call. Maybe they'll bring us in there to announce the pick. That would be awesome. Hey, Elway, if you're watching, give us a call. I'd be happy to do that for you. But anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I just, I'm sorry guys that we didn't get to all of your questions. I know I've seen a lot about Jeremy Chin. Love him in the second. Just want to get that out there because I've seen a few people make those kind of comments, and understand, there's many things the Broncos can do. If they don't take your player in the first round, doesn't mean the Broncos have failed the draft. There's always going to be players. I know we're wide receiver in the first round, but even if they miss on wide receiver, there's other guys that they can go take that are still going to improve this offense, and they can still add another guy in the first round that's going to be an impact player at another position. So, again, make sure you play out the entire draft before you really start getting too crazy. And
there's more than one round.
Right.
And the best teams at the board dictate them. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, again, this is a common anecdote, but the Broncos, we never thought Bradley Chubb would be there at 5. A, I don't believe you. You're lying. B, it just shows how wild it is. You got to be flexible. Practice your yoga, practice your mental yoga today, mental moga. And, just keep it flexible. It's really important. If the best player on the board is Derek Brown and you're picking 15 and there's not a good trade there and you want to take him, hallelujah. You got 4 other picks in the top 100 where you can add talent elsewhere. And you got one of the best offensive line coaches in football. You got a good young offense. There's reason to be excited. The draft is more than the first round. And honestly, the draft, as much as we get hampered on it, 95% of what the Broncos offense and defense is going to be next year depends on who's already on the team. I mean, the draft picks are fun, but they're as much about, 2021, 2022, 2023 as they are 2020.
Right, exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate everybody who took the time to super chat superstars. You guys are the best. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH. You can find myself at Kendell MHH. I'm trying to get to 3,000 followers on Twitter before we get to the draft. We'll see if that happens. I'm, I think, like 80 away. So we'll see. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating if you're joining us via that. I mean, obviously, we love you guys coming here to talk on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, etc. But if you're listening on iTunes or whatever, make sure you leave us a rating and leave a comment because we really appreciate that. And you can follow Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast wherever you listen to these shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at PTP Football Pod. Carl, happy National Beer Day. I know that you are you're drinking water today. I think you might we'll have one after this. Really do appreciate you. Thank you, listeners, for coming on today. You guys are the best. You're the reason that we're here. And, uncertain times, things are absolutely wild, but having this constant here every 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, every Tuesday, it really means so much to me. I speak for Carl and I both. Thank you guys for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. As always, before we get out of here, I like to say, go Broncos, and thank you guys.